everybody, and welcome to CPF Live. I am so excited and thrilled to be bringing you a panel of absolutely extraordinary people this evening. We have the amazing authors of Pure Grit, Lily Collison and Cara Buckley. And then we also have three people that are actually featured in the book, but very close friends of the foundation and actually of mine that I am actually, very, very excited that they're joining. Jerron Herman, Catherine Gray, and Isla Eckhoff. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Rach.
So for those of you who haven't seen or don't know, Pure Grit is a collection of 19 stories. And it was published and written by Lily and Cara and released just around the Paralympics this year. And so we really wanted to obviously get everybody on board today and talk about the book and then talk about some themes that the book really sort of brings up and, you know, what it means to all the different panelists. But Lily and Cara, I'll ask you sort of the questions first. What made you want to write Pure Grit? What sort of brought the two of you together?
Go for it, Cara, if you'd like. Yeah.
Okay. So last year, Lily and I both read a book that made a big impression on us. It's called Struggling for Serendipity, and it was written about another person who's featured in the book, Beth Colby, and she talks about her own experience of seeing a billboard where she saw a woman in a wheelchair who goes on to Harvard. And when she was a teenager, she was often told what she wasn't able to do in life, and she wanted to decide for herself what she was able to do. And what that billboard did for her is reframe her opportunities in life. And she actually went on to Harvard herself, and then to Stanford, and now practices law in DC. And what that book taught Lily and I is the value and the importance of role models. And so as Lily and I talked about the book and explored things together, we actually decided that we thought we wanted to write a book about role models so that we could identify people like the three of you here with us today. We've been so lucky to interview, but to also shine a light on what else is possible in life, to reframe that discussion around, you know, limitations and more talk about opportunities. And Lily, yeah.
I'll sort of ask you this question. Why did you want to sort of have these role models have disabilities? And I think this sort of is a really important piece of why this book is so special and why it's so important.
Well, I suppose I'll come in there. I suppose when, like, I'm the parent of a boy, an adult now, who is cerebral palsy. And when I had written a book about his type of cerebral palsy, a book about spastic diplegia. And when writing that, one of the pieces of research that really had a profound, I can remember where on the paper, on the page where I read this, in this particular paper, where it talked about that research showed that people with spastic diplegia, you know, you know, which is largely a mild to moderate physical disability, largely without cognitive impairment, yet they were, you know, sort of having poor, you know, sort of with participation, they were struggling with participation, like they were much more than the typical population unemployed, much more not in relationships, and many more not having children. And that really bothered me, because if people with a mild to moderate physical disability, with largely without a cognitive impairment, you know, if they were struggling with participation, well, you know, I worried then, you know, so I wanted to, you know, and like there were so many shining examples like Byrne, like Isla, like Catherine out there. And we wanted to shine a light on all these great stories just to show what is possible, because oftentimes, you can't be what you can't see. So, you know, and like the people in the book, they're from a whole load of different fields. And just to tell all these stories, because, you know, seeing is believing.
Yeah, I think that is so important. And I love actually that the book covers so many different individuals, but who are in so many different fields. So all different industries. And Isla, you know, obviously you are a pretty extraordinary human being and, you know, someone very close to me, but you are a managing director at BlackRock. And so, you know, your day job is, you know, pretty intense. You are in the banking industry. And I think it's important to shine a light on, you know, banking and the financial services and what your role has played in that, from both, being a woman and having a disability. And, the role model that you are is sort of extraordinary. Did you have any role models when you were younger that got you into banking?
There really wasn't anybody like me growing up, which is why I was pretty excited. So how I met Lily is, I read the Spastic Dysplasia book because of you, Rachel, is where it all started. And I read the book, and my head almost exploded because I'd been looking for that book. So I have cerebral palsy from the hips down. I actually have spastic dysplasia. Now, before I read Lily's book, I didn't even know that that's what my CP was called. So as I read the book, I reached out to Lily and started asking her some questions, giving her some notes, because my head was exploding. I'd been looking for that book for like 3 or 4 decades. And then through those conversations with Lily, she told me she was writing another book, and would I be interested in being interviewed? And it's really pretty amazing to me, because when I look at all the people that are in this book, I mean, I've joked with Lily a whole bunch of times, like, how in God's name did you pick me to be in this book? But I think my focus around disability, and particularly because I sit at the largest asset manager in the world, we launched a disability network about 4 or 5 years ago. We called it the Ability Network because, like Lily's book, I'm sick and tired of talking about all the things that people with disabilities can't do. I want to talk about all the things that people with disabilities can do. And, we have the same dreams, the same hopes, the same desires as anybody else. And to Lily's point, people with disabilities are underemployed. They're either unemployed or certainly underemployed, and it's about 77% unemployment. So what I love about the book, and the focus for me, is to sort of let people know that you have to be bold, be brave, and go after the things that you want. And what the book shows is 19 people with physical disabilities that, through a combination of, whether you call it grit or you call it something else, don't let their physical disability impede their success, right? But it's a lot of work, and you've got to push and be bold, be brave, go get it. That's what I always tell my kids, and it's no different.
Yeah, I think it's an extraordinary place to be, right? And this is one thing that I love about the book, is that it doesn't just tell about all the successes as well. It really tells everybody's story and what they've gone through and where they're at. Because, not everyone is at the end of their story. And I think that's sort of such an exciting thing. And not saying that you're at the end of your story either, Isla. You are well and truly, you've got wonderful things ahead of you as well. But Catherine, you really are at sort of like the beginnings. You're in your first year of college. You are literally at the start of, say, your career. So to be seen as a role model in already, obviously, I think, and you deserve that. For those that don't know, Catherine is an adaptive athlete, and she is the first female adaptive athlete at the University of Michigan. She's also ranked #1 and #2 in the world in her classification for javelin and discus. And so you're an extraordinary athlete, but, to be seen as a role model at your age, what does that mean to you?
It really means the world. I didn't really have anyone besides my family growing up that I could look up to that had CP. So to be able to grow in and to the title role model means so much. Like, being a woman with a disability is really hard. Like, I remember being like younger and being like, where's everyone else? Hello. And being able to like give back to the community, especially with women with disabilities, and be that role model that I never got to have. It means so much because I get to inspire people and tell them that they're not alone, which is so much means so much, because I feel like CP can be very isolating when you don't have people to look up to. And that's why I think that Pure Grit is so important, because here's a whole book about representation and like what you can be, and like stories of triumph and grit. And I just think that has so much power.
I love the word power, and if anyone has had the opportunity to watch Jerron dance, which I have been so fortunate enough to see on many occasions, there is definitely power to it, but there's this obviously exceptional grace and beauty and talent and everything else that goes with that. You know, you really have reshaped and created like your own genre when it comes to dancing. What do you see is sort of your biggest piece and what you're offering to this book?
Wow. Well, thank you for that. First, I'll say like I'm a short visual description, dark-skinned Black man with like blonde hair, and I'm wearing a pink shirt today. I would say that my like biggest contribution to this piece is like really validating the fact of I guess trying it out. There's a way in which I became a dancer quite spontaneously, but as I was talking to someone earlier today, even like it was really extraordinary for me to figure out, based off of non-disabled and typical training standards, I was fitting into how dancers are bred and made already. And so I was very curious about how my body, my cerebral palsy body, could then translate to a typical non-disabled dance body in various ways. So, you know, it really for me is about being authentic in your curiosity and not allowing anyone else to deter you from that, right? Like, I think parts of this book are about a group of people who are really like genuinely curious about what makes people tick and what makes people move. And I just think that's what really fuels a lot of the change and the progress that we actually need. It's that, you know, what keys us into what we want to know more of. And that curiosity is really important to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this idea of, you know, what does it mean and where does it end up? And I think one of the wonderful things that Lily and Cara, you both do as authors, is you don't force a message on the reader. You really are allowing them to take in these stories and meet, I suppose, all the individuals who are part of this book and allow them to take away their own sort of takeaways from it. You're not saying this is how you should feel, this is how you should think. And I think that's a really important piece. And I know when you were writing these, how did you even select the storytellers? Because obviously there is a phenomenal amount of individuals that could be in this book. I am so glad that you picked obviously the three that we're speaking with today, but how did you select them?
Do you want to go there, Cara?
I'm happy to. So I think what was amazing about writing this book is when we wrote a wish list, everybody was so gracious with their time and said yes. And I'm still blown away how lucky we got. We had one person who could not do it because they were writing their own book. But I am just in awe and so appreciative that we were able to get time with the three of you and the other 16 people that we interviewed. Lily and I, we were very deliberate in talking about representation across different life experiences, different disabilities, different industries, because we thought that would create a richer narrative for the reader to really understand the depth and the difference between different, you know, life and disability experiences. And so we did try to be really deliberate about that. And, you know, Rachel, we got really lucky with you and your team's help to get some introductions as well, which were critical to the formation of the book. But Lily, feel free to add on to that too. I think we were so grateful.
Some people we knew ourselves, some like Rachel, you introduced us to some people, and then we cold contacted a number of people, and was really shocked, like cold contacting like Tom, Judy, these people. But like really what we were blown away, and like we would contact a few and then wait to see. And everybody saying yes. That's what shocked us. We were really kind of humbled by people saying yes, you know what I mean? That, everybody was so gracious. And not only like right through the project from start to finish, like here tonight, people, on the panel here tonight, like Catherine, Isla and Jaron here. And, everybody's really supportive of the book, from start to finish, that it became almost community, the book itself, so like that was what was fantastic about it, that everybody was very generous. And I suppose in a sense, because it was the pandemic, we could interview people over Zoom, you know what I mean? The pandemic allowed us, like, I think we have 7 different countries represented in the book, from Australia to Brazil to Iceland to, and, that was fabulous that we could get a good global spread. But I think, like while the pandemic was so hard on so many levels, it actually allowed us to write the book, to interview people over Zoom. And I should add, just if Cara, if I'm allowed to add this, Cara actually had a baby in the middle of us writing the book. Cara had a baby in October. So this being a pandemic project, she also, was very busy, with this very small baby. So, it was, a very intense project, but a great project. Like I must say, from start to finish, there wasn't a day when we were writing this book that I didn't get up excited about it. I can honestly say that, and I could say the same for Cara. Like it was just such a joy from start to finish to do it. Like, as I said to someone, I pay to talk to these people every day, you know what I mean? Like it seemed like a privilege to talk with, like each, when we got, to talk to the people over Zoom, like to talk to ye, like I would have paid for the privilege, because it was just, we learned so much. And like Rachel, you say we didn't do any sort of summary at the end of the book, that people could take what they wanted to from the stories, you know what I mean? And every different story, there are, nuggets of, wonderful information that people tell.
This is actually a question then I would actually like to ask. I'll ask Jerron you first. How did you pick and choose what you told? Because obviously you've lived an extraordinary life. You've got lots of different parts that sort of led to where you are. Did you pick and choose, or was it just sort of a natural sort of interview process and the story just got told?
I don't know what it was, but Lily and Cara kind of gave me permission to tell it all. And the depth of the questions, I was very taken with, because it went beyond an introductory 101 kind of basis. And I will say that this experience, and maybe even a lot of the reason why people were so endeared to you both to interview with you, is because of the ways that other texts that you created were perceived and were kind and were diligent. So there's this precedent that you had that, because disabled people, we love to research. So we'll be like, who is this? Who, go backwards to really assess why. And but in responding to the interview, yeah, I think that I was picking stories and qualities of my experience that would really elevate like this life, the life lived in this disabled body, and that happens to be through dance, that happens to be through my family structure and the ways that I was raised as a kid, and how that transfers to my ethics as an adult. So there's a lot of interconnecting things, but I think that also supports a disability justice ethic, which is about other things beyond, mere independence or mere kind of doing it. So the openings were great for that kind of cross pollination, if you will.
I love that. I love that, you felt you got the opportunity to tell your story in its entirety and with the depth and breadth that you wanted to. And I think that shines in the book. It really does. I obviously, knew you before I read the book. And I must say, when I was reading like your story, and this is what I said to Lily after I'd read it, I felt like you were sitting next to me and telling it. Like I heard your voice in all of it, which I think is really special, because, you know, it would be very easy sometimes for the author to really put their voice in it. And, you know, I think that's, you know, commendable to both Lily and Cara, because I really felt like they stayed authentic to everybody. Now, Isla, obviously your story has lots of different pieces. If you were going to give sort of one takeaway, and what would that be from your story?
To me, what makes this book so incredible is the absolute joy, to use Lily's word that she used about a minute ago, and the fact that we all really had an opportunity to tell our story in our own voice. And what makes Lily and Cara's writing so fabulous is that it's not their voice you hear. It's each of the 19 of us, right? When I read Catherine's story, when I read Jaren's story, and I've met him before, to your point, right? You feel like you're right next to that person. So I think the most critical thing that everybody needs to understand is that disability that each of us have, it's different for everybody. So the fact that all three of us can have CP, but it's going to be a different life experience for each of us, right? So disability is different. Everybody's life experience is different. And it's just an element of who we are. It's not all of who we are, right? That's why I think the joy that comes through in the book, when we talk about success, everybody's success is different, right? So there are things that everybody's good at, and things that everybody's not good at. Everybody needs to focus on the stuff that they're good at. That's how you're going to be successful. And if we could just give everybody this space to bring their full selves there, disability, non-disability, talents, and the things that they're not good at. Because, you know, you can see my disability coming a mile away. I have spastic diplegia. I walk with a cane. You could, like from 5 miles away, you'd know I have a disability, right? But everybody has things, and disability is an interesting dynamic. It will impact everybody at some point in your life. It may not come to get you until you're 95, but disability is the thing that goes across every dimension. It's completely intersectional across everything, right? So just give everybody the space to be 100% of who they are, and the world would be a better place, disability or not.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that it's really about thinking about connecting with people, and that connection and what that looks like for everyone. You know, Catherine, you sort of spoke about that as sort of a younger teenager, you didn't sort of have the role models that you would be hoping for. And obviously, as you know, one of the first people to be in your place at college with a physical disability, you know, for you, what would you like to see? What's sort of next, and what would you love to see if you're thinking about representation or accessibility? You know, what's something that you'd like to see change?
That's a really good question. Being at college and being in the sports world with adaptive track and field, and being the first female adaptive athlete in adaptive track and field, I really want to see more women get involved. I think that sports has just like changed my life. Adaptive sports has really given me the space to feel seen, and that's like, I think that's crucial for CP, because we're all just so hungry to be represented. So I really want to see more women get involved in adaptive sports and just like go through the life-changing milestones that I went through. Like, I've been able to compete for my college and like around the country and for the world on Team USA. So, and through that, like, more than the competition and more than the medals, I've also been able to be a better advocate for people with physical disabilities, and just have more confidence. And I feel like CP is such a personalized like journey of self-acceptance, but I feel like sports has really allowed me to be like, this is who I am. I have spastic diplegia. I'm a woman. I'm 20 years old, but like like Isla was saying, like CP doesn't define me. I feel like that's been crucial with sports. So just reiterating, I'd love to see more women and girls get involved because it's truly a life-changing experience. And I want everyone to like feel the love that I've felt through sports.
Well, the joy, obviously, and the enthusiasm and everything that you bring to the table. I cannot wait to see, obviously, the successes that you have over the next few years, because it really is going to be extraordinary, and you are a light to this field. And I feel like this is the wonderful thing. And Lily, you sort of mentioned something about feeling like family, and it's definitely something that I feel every day in my job. I am so fortunate to obviously work in with each and every one of you in different capacities, and the love and the joy that I feel from everyone and the relationships that we have, is what allows us to do everything that we do every day, is what allows us to be accepted on who we are and really sort of strive for those successes. And I think you've captured that in this book. And I don't know how you captured it in this book, because I think sometimes I can't even explain it on a day-to-day basis, but you captured it in this book, and it's really remarkable.
Good.
So last question for all of you, sort of one thing that you can give our listeners, one sentence, one takeaway, what would it be? Sharon?
Oh, I'm first.
I know, I put you on the hot spot.
No, it's great. I mean, from what we've talked about in this whole conversation, relationships are the lifeblood of change, I would say. And let's be really intentional and authentically curious about why we get connected.
Authentically curious. I think we should have a slogan on a t-shirt that needs to be made in pink, because you look amazing tonight. So let's do it. Isla.
Sorry, I was on mute. I really want to raise the profile of disability. There's a lot of discussion in the market today around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'd really want to focus and change the profile of disability. And when people talk about race and gender and diversity, I want to talk about disability. Because again, I think at some point, look, people with disabilities make up 15% of the globe. We are the largest minority on the planet, right? So our voices need to be heard. This book is a perfect example on how we can do that, but we all need to stand up and be advocates for people to have the freedom to express whatever they want to express, disability, non-disability, right? We're all people, we're all in this together. And the more we're accepting of everybody's strengths and weaknesses and skill sets, the better off we're all going to be.
And I think that's amazing, because it comes into that point of what we can all do, right? We can all, whether you're an ally, whether you're a disabled person, whichever it may be, we all have a responsibility to just have humanity and to be, how can we make changes within our own local environments? How can we make changes within our friendship circles? How do we make changes, within our family networks and at our workplaces? All of us can take action. And I think that's such a wonderful thing, and take recognition of that and go, all right, let's do better. Let's think about what this looks like. And obviously all of you, shine a light on that every day. But I love that, Isla. That's really amazing. Lily, what would you like to have as your sort of one key takeaway?
I suppose, just when you asked that question, I was thinking about it. I suppose the whole richness of life in diversity, you know what I mean? The richness that diversity brings to life, that, be it whatever, disability, anything. It's just the richness. Like, wouldn't life be very dull if everybody was the same? But like, to echo Isla's point though, disability was later coming to the table, you know what I mean? And I think it's the one that really, like, and that came through in the book. You know, Hallie mentioned it, it got mentioned different times. Byrne, you made that point as well. But the disability, you know, in terms of the richness of diversity, you know, disability needs to get more sort of focus and to get more visibility.
Yeah, let's all commit to that. I'm on board, like to get this train going and to make sure. And, you know, I think, as I said, all of us can take on that as a responsibility. It's definitely not just up to disabled advocates to make that happen. It is up to all of us to make sure that this conversation is one that we are hearing regularly. Cara, what's your...
So 1 out of every 3 athletes that I work with on Team USA has a disability. And yet I think the way that we celebrate and talk about athletes is still very different. And so my hope is that we talk about this in the book, but my hope is that we shift the narrative from being this idea of inspiring or, you know, association with pity, and we change that to power and strength. And so that we are celebrating people for the power that they bring, whether it's sports or dance or finance, the strength that people on an individual basis bring, and that we shift that from kind of the stereotype and the stigma that I think still exists.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the piece to confound in that as well is that the story as well can have like the hardships, and sometimes that it is hard. And Catherine, you sort of brought up before that, you know, it's hard. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's not easy. And that's part of the story as well. And what is your main piece as a takeaway? I know you talked about women in sport and particularly women with disabilities in sports, but what else would you like to see?
I was thinking about it as everyone else was speaking, and I think my main piece of like advice, or like my one sentence, would be, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, like in life, but also having a disability. I feel like having a disability, you feel like CP can hold you back, but it doesn't have to. And like, you can still pursue, like, have a full and rich life, like academically and sports, social life. And like, I've met some of my best friends and teammates and stuff, just like taking that extra step and like working really hard and like going up to people that I don't know and being like, hi, how are you? Like, I've been able to recruit people onto the sports teams and things. So I would say, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, because you never know where it's gonna lead. And like, that's where like the greatest connections will be. And also, like, it might seem nerve-wracking, like beforehand, but like, I've only had good things like come out of making myself uncomfortable and stepping outside of my comfort zone. So I think that's my one piece of advice and like my one-liner.
And I think finding your people, right? I think we all need our people in our village around us, those that, you know, hold us up when we need it, and those that support us when things are hard. And I am so lucky that all the people on this panel are part of, obviously, the CPF family and the village, because you definitely do keep us all meshed together and doing that. But I truly mean that when we think about who we have around us and the people that are supporting us, if you feel like you don't have that, it is there and you can find it. And anyone who feels like they don't have it, reach out to us at the foundation, because we are one friendly bunch and we are always open to having new people join us at any time. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone. As I said, if you have not gone and read the book Pure Grit, I highly recommend it. You'll get to hear the stories of these absolutely incredible 3 individuals and 16 more. It's a wonderful, it's an easy read. It is really a joy. So thank you all. And I can't wait to actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the near future, see you all in person.